Hello, Mr. O'Neill. Let's learn about the French Revolution. Okay, Part 1, Key Causes. So there were three estates, and they were pretty much the social class of France. There were the clergies, the nobles, and everybody else. Everybody else was also called bourgeois, and they were just the middle class. But I'm just going to call them everybody else. One of the reasons for the revolution was because of the reason that the clergies and the nobles didn't pay any taxes, but everyone else paid all of the taxes. So the clergies and the nobles had all the money. The reason France was in so much debt was because these three awesome people decided to blow all of the money on wars. Another reason for the French Revolution was the fact that the Americans had actually done something very similar about a decade ago. Basically, the French were like, holy crap, if they can do it, we can do it. So the Third Estate started having secret meetings behind the king's back in order to plan a revolt to throw over the monarchy. As they plan, time passes by, and the first two estates allowed the third to be a part of the government. The Third Estate was given 1/3 of the vote, and they were the happiest people on the earth, until they realized that 2/3 is more than 1/3, because the first two estates would always vote for the same thing. Part 2, National Assembly. So the Third Estate is really mad right now, and they say, hey man, you gotta start paying your taxes. To which the king replied, no. And that was it. The Third Estate was done with the king's bullcrap, so they marched right up to his palace. But he locked them out, so they went to the nearest tennis court and swore the oath there that they'd get what they wanted. And they weren't kidding either. They went straight to Bastille, which was this dungeon prison place, and they wreaked havoc in there. They even chopped the gatekeeper's head off, which is pretty cool. While this is all happening, there's something called the Great Fear going on. The Great Fear was pretty much just a bunch of rumors that the king was going to stop the revolt from happening. So in response, the Third Estate went and they destroyed all of the Lord's records. Part 3, the end of the old regime. So the Third Estate decides that they are going to form their own legislative branch. And one of the first things that they do as the National Assembly is they vote the nobles out of the government. They also created the Declaration of the Rights of Man, which was a lot like the Bill of Rights, but it was in French, and it applied to everybody. Also, in 1791, the National Assembly created the Constitution of 1791. It's a pretty clever name. Basically, the Constitution said that there would be a king, but that there would also be a legislative branch to help out. So other countries in Europe are seeing what's happening in France, and they get scared. So they try to threaten the people of France so that the same thing doesn't happen to them. They said, bring back Louis. And the legislative branch said, don't threaten us, we'll destroy you. Except, that's not what happened. Sorta. The plans of the French didn't really work out, and they got messed up pretty bad. This led to a new group of people who were frustrated with France getting beaten. They decided that they'd form a new group called the Paris Commune. And the Paris Commune had a lot more radical ideas. The Paris Commune eventually went on to create the National Convention, and the radical groups convinced the National Convention to kill Louis XVI. And they said, okay. And so Louis XVI was guillotined, and his head was cut off. Part 4, Reign of Terror. So the countries around France started to get frustrated, and they threatened to attack again. The French were pretty scared of this threat, so they started the Committee of Public Safety to protect them. I guess they don't know how to protect themselves though, because Jacobin Maximilian Robespierre this guy, hijacked the National Convention. Jacobin and the rest of the National Convention decided that they would end the revolts coming in by prosecuting the people against the revolution. Their idea of prosecuting, however, was just to kill whoever didn't support the revolution. This time period became known as the Reign of Terror. The government killed lots of people, but guillotining seemed to be too slow, so they just dug graves and shot people into them. For the good people, Jacobin created the Republic of Virtue. Here, slaves were freed and the education was good. Also, Jacobin essentially de-Christianized France and did strange things like get rid of the word saint on street signs. He also created a new calendar that would start when the Republic started. The calendar had 12 months with 3 10-day weeks in each of them. Jacobin wasn't really that popular though. He was really getting into the whole I'm gonna kill everyone who doesn't agree with me thing, so the National Convention cut his head off. All while this is going on, people are still paranoid about other countries invading, so the National Convention built a big army to fight off the bad guys. Part 5, The Directory. After Jacobin was killed, things were kinda just the way they were before. So the National Convention created another cleverly named constitution, the Constitution of 1795. And under this new constitution, not everybody could vote. You now needed a certain amount of land to vote. What? Also, a new group called the Directory was created. So the economy was getting pretty whack because the people were making big bucks off of the government by lending them money. And I just want to point out quick that as I'm writing this, I'm noticing a pattern in the entire revolution. Case in point is this situation. The Directory is now scared that someone is going to take them over, so they ask the government to protect them. Sadly for them, one savage from the army named Napoleon Bonaparte pulled a coup d'etat, or a stroke of the state, and screwed over the Directory, putting him into power. Part 6, Rise of Napoleon. Napoleon worked his way up the ranks until he was the leader of France. He set up a new government called the Consulate, which was a republic, but it was really just a monarchy. He crowned himself Emperor Napoleon I. And he was doing pretty well too. He defeated Papal States, which allowed him to take over a lot of northern Italy. He was popular with the people of France, so they told him that he should be in charge of raiding Britain because he's so cool. He was pretty smart about it, and he knew that he would most likely not be able to take on Britain's awesomeness in its full glory, so he attacked Egypt, who was pretty important to England. Even though he didn't fight Great Britain directly, he still got whooped. He quickly decided to pull a George McClellan and backed off. But besides getting into other fights, he did a lot for France. He made things cool with the Catholics and said that it was okay to be Christian. He made things not as cool for women when he said that they weren't equal to men. And also his nobles were people who actually knew what they were doing. Part 7, Napoleon's Empire. So France was still fighting with a bunch of other people, and Napoleon said, we gotta set things straight with the other guys if we're gonna go through with the whole revolution thing. He tried to do that, but it didn't really work out, and all of Europe still hated him. It was okay for him though, because he fought off everybody and gained a lot of Europe. Now that he controlled so much, he was able to spread his ideas to the rest of Europe. Now, the British were not fans of Napoleon, and he knew it, so he tried to go at them one more time. It didn't go very smoothly, because Napoleon didn't have a water game like England did. So Napoleon realized that he'd have to go the indirect route once again, and he tried to mess up England's economy this time. But England's economy was really strong, and Napoleon could not thwart it. Meanwhile, the people that Napoleon had conquered were not super happy, and they didn't like him. This meant that the people within his land opposed him. The nationality of pride of France was going down significantly. Part 8. The Fall of Napoleon. Napoleon is aware of how other people don't like him, so he chooses the risky decision of attacking Russia to show others not to rebel against him. When Napoleon went to attack, it turned out that Russia didn't want to fight with France, so Russia just ended up backing off and running away from them. The retreat was a really good move, however, because they burned all of the cities along the way. And burning down everything may not seem like a very good plan at first, but it was a worthwhile one for Russia. When France got to Moscow, it was on fire, and Napoleon just gave up and said, "We're getting nowhere. Let's go home." Unluckily for Napoleon and the gang, there was nothing to scavenge on the way back, and it had also become winter during this time, so almost all of the troops starved and froze to death. When Napoleon got back to France, the other European countries took the opportunity to seize Paris, and they also managed to grab Napoleon. Napoleon's devoted followers stood up for him, though, and went to go help him. France built a big army and fought Prussia and Britain. But his big army didn't save him this time. He lost pretty badly. And so the rest of Europe decided that they'd exile Napoleon, and they'd just send him to an island by himself. Part 9. The results. In the end, the other European countries chose to create the Congress of Vienna, which was supposed to fix Europe from the mess Napoleon made it. So they did this in 3 ways. Number 1 was that all of the nations that got messed up in the whole ordeal were to be paid back by France, except France was dirt poor now. Number 2 was that each country would carefully watch over each other just to make sure that no one grew to too much power. Number 3 was that the royal families would be restored to their glory. Russia created the reactionary alliances in order to prevent France from flipping out and attacking everyone again. All of the other countries in Europe surrounded France and made it so that if anyone wanted to do something either with or to another country, they had to talk to them about it. Of course, that didn't last very long, but that was pretty much the end of the revolution. Part 10. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. O'Neill, for watching my video. I put a lot of effort into it just to get it done on time, and I had a lot of fun making it. I spent my whole weekend working on this. It's about 12:30 on Saturday night, and yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I want you to have a fantastic day. Thanks again.